Samus, the bounty hunter in space who everyone initially thought was a guy around the time of her debut. This was in large part due to the special suit she was using during her travels. Since then, she's acquired quite a few suits and suit upgrades that have granted her a wide variety of abilities and weapons. But which ones really stand out above the rest? I'm Kyle with 1UP Binge, and this is Samus Suits Worst to Best. Let's start out with some rules before we get started. First, as cool as some of these suits are, aesthetically speaking, the way these suits look won't really be a factor for this list. This is partly due to how some suits have been touched up over different titles, and also to avoid bias wherever possible. We're primarily going to focus on how useful or practical these suits are, the ways they function, as well as any strengths and weaknesses they might have. Secondly, we understand that most of these suits have quite a bit of lore surrounding them. To avoid talking about any one entry for too long, we'll only discuss the lore behind them if it plays a direct part in how the suit works. Third, we'll only consider attacks, weapons, and equipment that has been used in Samus's own games. Anything that is exclusive to outside franchises like Smash Bros. Will not be counted. As usual, we'll be starting with the worst on the list and working our way up to the best. And the suit that we're placing at the very bottom is the lack of a power suit in general, the Zero suit. This suit can be very nice. After all, not having to haul a heavy suit around grants Samus much more mobility. This allows her to take advantage of her Chozo DNA and perform some impressive acrobatic feats. This is where much of the Zero suit's usefulness kind of stops, however. Without the aid of a power suit or anything, the Zero suit's defenses are not very high. On top of this, the only weapon she carries with her in this suit is her Paralyzer, which can only stun enemies at its strongest. Granted, the Zero suit may have ranked higher if we were to include her jet boots and plasma whip/tether found in Smash Bros. The problem is that these are exclusive to Smash Bros. And not found in any official Metroid game. Up next, we have the basic, yet still very important, power suit. On its own, the power suit doesn't really seem all that special. After all, it's really as basic as you can get in terms of its design and what it's capable of. It does, at least, grant Samus a basic level shield for defense, as well as providing her with her iconic arm cannon. She can also dematerialize it when needed, but there isn't much else it can do that makes it stand out. Despite not being the best suit, it is still very much a necessary one. The power suit serves as a base of sorts for most of the other suits and suit upgrades that Samus gets during her exploration on various planets. If you aren't fond of us ranking the suit so low, maybe you can take some comfort in the fact that we still recognize its significance and importance. Following the power suit, we have the similarly named fully powered suit. This is an interesting case as the fully powered suit has only appeared once in-game that was a remake of a previous one, being the reward for Samus after completing the Ruins test in Zero Mission. Samus dons this suit that looks very similar to another suit we'll be talking about in just a bit. It grants her abilities and weapons such as the Plasma Beam, the Space Jump, and access to the similarly colored Gravity suit. Other than that, there isn't too much else to really say about it, as it's pretty much a precursor, or at least an older model, of the Various suit. Speaking of which, the Various suit is the next entry on our list. If we were to be ranking these suits by how iconic each of them are, then the Various suit would easily take the top spot. This is the suit that Samus is most often depicted in, whether it be for promotional material, box art, or her appearances in other franchises. The benefits this suit obtains upon acquiring it change slightly with certain games. It does get a certain set of consistent benefits though. Its defense is further increased from that of the power suit, though the amount depends on the game. It's much better at protecting against much higher temperatures, it can help protect against various acids and parasites, and absorb Blue X a lot more safely. In Metroid Fusion specifically, it can also help with much lower temperatures. It increases overall speed in Metroid 2, and increases general damage from Samus's dash attack in Metroid Dread. All in all, this is an advanced version of the power suit, in that it also serves as a base for all the other suits and upgrades to be added on that Samus will obtain over the course of most games. We don't know if this unusual one technically has a name, but our next entry goes to what is commonly known as the Justin Bailey suit. We won't talk about this one for too long, as there isn't much new added to it when compared to the Varia suit. This one is acquired usually after beating the game it's featured in, under a certain set of circumstances. Either that, or people just use Justin Bailey as a password to get it immediately. After getting this suit, it's noted that it functions pretty much the exact same way as the Varia suit, just without the actual armor. That's the only reason it ranks higher than the Varia suit. We imagine that Samus would be a lot more mobile without all that extra weight of the Varia, all while retaining its functions. Getting back into the regular suits now, the Dark Suit upgrade from Metroid Prime 2 is up next. This is one of the suits that is only used in one game, but it is still a fairly decent one. It grants 80% of a defense against Dark Aether's atmosphere, which is the planet that Samus traverses in Metroid Prime 2, as well as just increased natural defense in general. It's also able to protect from dark vapor attacks used by Inkla enemies. Combining all this with the suit's ability to use light crystals and beacons, and Samus can, at the very least, recover energy at the same rate at which it's lost while dealing with the planet's atmosphere. It also has one of the bigger design changes when compared to most other suits Samus is known for, particularly when it comes to the shoulders. The biggest drawback this suit has is when you obtain it. It's the first suit upgrade you get in the game, so you don't have most of your other equipment when you grab the suit. By the time you do get a lot of that equipment, there's a good chance you have a different upgrade by that point anyway. The literal opposite of this suit appears later in the same game, the Light Suit. This suit combines Chozo and Luminoth technology together, and is pretty much the better version of the Dark Suit. Whereas the Dark Suit only gave you an 80% increase in resistance against Dark Aether's atmosphere, the Light Suit makes you completely invulnerable to it. The Light Suit also allows Samus to traverse through the planet's dangerous dark water without resistance, as well as walk right through swarms of enemies, known as Inkstorm. One of this suit's most noteworthy features is how it helps Samus travel using various light shafts. This is essentially the game's way of allowing you to use a fast travel system, quickly going around the various temples for Sky Temple keys in the later parts of the game. Fast travel in open world and free roaming games are often appreciated, so it's great to have a suit that gives players access to it. Maybe one day the developers can think of a clever way to bring back the suit and utilize it in different ways for different planets' environments. A suit that is much more common in the Metroid games is the Gravity Suit. This one may simply look like a cooler palette swap of the Varia suit, but it's much more than that. The overall defense this suit provides goes up even higher than the Varia, as well as granting Samus more resistance and so forth. The most recognizable feature this suit has is its ability to provide freedom of movement in places where gravity might be an issue, such as spaces zero gravity or when submerged in liquids like water. The visor in Metroid Prime also gets an improvement in the water, as it helps Samus see through the water much better. In most games, this suit also helps protect against lava, with the exception of games like Metroid Prime and Other M. Additionally, in Metroid Dread specifically, this suit also prevents damage from really cold temperatures, as well as increasing the damage from her dash attack even further than previous suits in the game. What's most intriguing about this suit is that it doesn't always appear in the form of a suit. In Other M, for example, Samus' standard suit will instead have a gravity feature, which will grant her the same effects when activated. In Metroid Prime 2, the gravity suit also doesn't make an appearance. Instead, the Dark Suit, which Samus already has by that point, will give her access to an accessory called the Gravity Boost. It mostly provides the same benefits as the gravity suit, and it gives Samus a third jump to use, which comes in handy when accessing certain areas underwater. Whether it be in the form of a suit or an accessory, the Gravity Suit is very useful. Up next is a suit that has one of the biggest physical changes in Metroid history, the Fusion Suit. What makes this suit interesting is that not all of it comes directly from a suit of armor. In Metroid Fusion, Samus gets attacked by the X-Parasite and falls unconscious. When the Galactic Federation finally finds her, they perform an emergency surgery to try and get the power suit off of her. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough just to remove the parts of the suit that were infected. To at least get rid of any X-Parasite left inside of her, they gave Samus a special vaccine that was made from Metroid DNA. The fusion suit literally forms around her at this point, and Samus is off to investigate the activity of X-Parasite on a nearby space station. The sliminess of this suit allows Samus to have a lot more freedom of movement. The effects of the suit provided by the Metroid DNA also have some pros and cons after first obtaining it. On the one hand, the suit helps Samus absorb the X-Parasites, converting them to replenish energy and missiles. Her non-cannon arm also has some sharp edges on the outside for damage that look very similar to what Batman has on his glove. This suit does have a couple drawbacks though. Because it doesn't naturally possess as much actual armor, the defense provided is not as high as other armors. Not only this, but because the suit and Samus herself are now part Metroid, the resistance to cold is a bit lower. Thankfully, however, Samus finds upgrades for the suit as she progresses that will assist with lessening the weaknesses the suit has. The fusion suit does appear in other games, but it's mostly a reward at the end or a change in cosmetics, making it not all too helpful on its own in those titles. It is a nice little gift though for those who are fans of the suit and want to see more of it. While this next entry doesn't actually have an official name, fans have commonly decided to refer to it as the Omega Suit. This fan-given name is most likely due to the fact that Samus acquires it while fighting the Omega Metroid after absorbing the SA-X's Core X. The Omega Suit is pretty much what the Fusion Suit is, but there are some slight differences. Aside from having more of the color scheme that Samus fans are more familiar with, the Omega Suit restores Samus's resistance to cold. Due to this, Samus can once again use her Ice Beam, which ultimately helps her defeat the Omega Metroid. It's also possible that these events are what takes place shortly before Metroid Dread. In the opening part of the story, the power suit Samus has, which has a color scheme similar to that of the Omega Suit, is known to be in the process of regenerating to look more mechanical like it did before Samus had the suit surgery in Metroid Fusion. Samus doesn't retain the resistance to cold, but this is remedied later on in the game. Hopefully, one day this suit gets an official name, but if it doesn't, we're more than happy to keep calling it the Omega Suit. We now enter the top 3 suits of the franchise, and the bronze medal goes to the PED suit, or the Phazon Enhancement Device suit. Much like the Fusion suit, the PED suit is a combination of technology by the Chozo and the Galactic Federation. After Dark Samus corrupts Samus and her allies, their bodies begin to naturally produce Phazon. If not kept in check, the Phazon could corrupt her and spell bad news. The PED suit was designed to prevent this to a degree. It allows Samus to channel the Phazon energy she's producing and convert it into energy for the suit itself. This only helps so much though. As Samus progresses in the game, the suit still becomes more corrupt by Phazon over time, gradually making her resemble Dark Samus more and more. This does at least give her access to stronger hyper weapons and abilities though. The most noteworthy thing this suit is probably known for is its ability to enter hyper mode. While in use, hyper mode allows Samus to use Phazon against her enemies in deadly ways. This does come with a huge risk however. If Samus remains in hyper mode for too long, she enters corrupt hyper mode and must deplete any excess Phazon as soon as possible, before it becomes too much. If she fails to do so, she'll become completely corrupted by Phazon, turning her into another Dark Samus, instantly ending the game. This may be a good suit overall, but that terrifying risk involved definitely keeps us on our toes. Our silver medal goes to yet another suit Samus uses that deals heavily in Phazon, the Phazon suit. There are quite a few similarities between the Phazon suit and the PED suit, but the Phazon suit stands out a bit more. The biggest difference is that while Samus can also enter hyper mode while in the suit, it doesn't come with the same risk of total corruption as the PED suit does. This can be credited to the Phazon suit's ability to harness Phazon in a much more reliable fashion. They also both have access to a powerful beam-based attack. However, it could definitely be argued that the Phazon beam, while needing to pull Phazon from the surrounding area for it to be used, is actually a bit stronger than the PED suit's Hyper Beam in terms of overall power. While this next tidbit doesn't necessarily give Samus any benefits, we gave the Phazon suit a few bonus points due to it being the base for the creation of a great villain, Dark Samus. After defeating the Metroid Prime in the first Prime game, Samus loses the Phazon suit when the aforementioned creature rips the Phazon suit right off of her, combining the suit with some of Samus's extracted DNA, and Dark Samus was born. So not only did the Phazon suit wind up being one of Samus's best suits out there, but it also gave birth to one of the Metroid series' greatest villains. And finally, we reach our top spot. The gold medal definitely goes to one of Samus's newest suits, the Metroid suit. Remember how we talked a bit earlier about Samus receiving a vaccine with Metroid DNA in it to save her in the opening events of Metroid Fusion? Well, that vaccine really comes into play during the events of Metroid Dread. As she travels through ZDR, the Metroid DNA that Samus now has is becoming more apparent. Because of this, Samus is able to absorb energy from certain other living things just by touching them. Her main adversary while there, who goes by Ravenbeak, knows this and seeks to get the DNA from her and bring the Metroid species back from extinction for his own benefits. When Samus and Ravenbeak face off one more time near the end, he informs her that it was her Chozo DNA that ultimately kept her Metroid-based abilities in check. This is because a Chozo tribe known as the Toha were the only tribe known to be able to keep control over the Metroid species. After being defeated at first in their last battle, Samus is consumed by rage, thus allowing the Metroid powers to fully take over. The Metroid suit is then created, appearing more natural as opposed to mechanical like most other suits she has. This could definitely be argued to be her most powerful suit yet. As far as we know, aside from death by losing the struggle against Ravenbeak X when infected by Purple X, the Metroid suit makes Samus virtually invincible, as most enemies that even touch the suit directly will be killed instantly. It was also through this transformation that she was given the Hyper Beam again, which ultimately helps defeat Ravenbeak and that Purple X for good. This is all happening as ZDR begins to fall apart. A friend of Samus allows her to absorb him in order to keep the suit from draining the ship's energy that she is escaping on. This reverts her back to the gravity suit and she escapes. The last thing we'll mention is how funny we think it is that the suit essentially turns Samus into a Metroid. This is because when the franchise first got started, many people assumed that Metroid was what Samus's name was before they found out her actual name. This raises the slight chance that the Metroid suit was partly designed with this in mind. In the end, it's the overall power, abilities, the stories and events building up to it, and practically total invincibility that makes us feel comfortable giving the Metroid suit the gold medal for best suit that Samus has. But what do you guys think? What's your favorite Metroid suit? Let us know in the comment section below. And make sure to hit that notification bell and binge more of our Nintendo videos. Thanks for watching.